Welcome. This session is about strengthening something that quietly shapes every decision you make. Self-trust. The ability to rely on your own judgment, to follow through on what you decide, to know that when you commit to something, you will move toward it. Because self-trust is not created by words alone. It is created through experience, through repeated moments where intention becomes action, and action becomes evidence. Evidence that you can rely on yourself. So before we go any further, gently close your eyes and allow yourself to settle comfortably. Not collapsing into the chair, not forcing your posture rigid, just balanced, supported. Let the shoulders soften slightly. Allow the jaw to loosen, and bring your attention gently toward the rhythm of your breathing. There is no need to control it. Just notice it. The natural movement of breath entering the body and leaving again. Because the body has its own steady intelligence. Breathing happens automatically. Circulation happens automatically. Balance is constantly adjusting beneath awareness. And in the same way, the mind also has natural processes that guide decision and behavior. Yet sometimes those processes become clouded by doubt, second-guessing, hesitation. Moments where you question your own judgment or delay acting on what you already know is right. These experiences are common, but they do not define your capability. Because trust in yourself can always be strengthened. Just as a muscle becomes stronger through use. Each time you follow through on a decision, a small piece of evidence is created. Evidence that you can rely on yourself. And when enough of those experiences accumulate, confidence begins to stabilize naturally. Not forced, not exaggerated, simply grounded in experience. So as you sit here now, allow your attention to move inward for a few moments. Not analyzing, just noticing the steady presence of your own awareness. Because from this calm, attentive state, it becomes easier to reconnect with the ability to trust your own direction and strengthen it. And as you continue sitting here, settled and attentive, it becomes easier to notice something important about trust. Self-trust is not something you are simply born with or without. It develops over time, through experience, through evidence. Each time you make a decision and follow through, a small signal is sent to the mind. A signal that says, I can rely on myself. And when these signals accumulate, confidence begins to stabilize. Not the loud confidence that tries to impress others, but a quieter form. A steady knowing that you will do what you say you will do. Yet many people gradually weaken self-trust without realizing it. Not through failure, but through small, broken promises to themselves. Decisions postponed, intentions delayed, plans abandoned before they begin. When this happens repeatedly, the mind begins to question its own direction. Doubt grows quietly. Hesitation appears more often, and decisions feel heavier than they once did. But the same process that weakens self-trust can also rebuild it, because trust is restored the same way it was lost, through behaviour, through follow-through, through small commitments honoured consistently. Now consider how different a decision feels when you know you will act on it. There is less internal debate, less hesitation, more clarity about the next step, because the mind recognizes a reliable pattern, a pattern of choosing and then acting. This reliability becomes a foundation for confidence, not confidence in perfection, but confidence in your willingness to move forward, even when conditions are not ideal, even when the outcome is uncertain. And as you reflect on this now, you may remember moments when you trusted your own direction fully, moments where you acted without second-guessing, where decisions felt clear, where movement felt natural. Those experiences are important reminders because they show that self-trust already exists within you. It is not something that must be invented. It is something that can be strengthened again. Strengthened through consistent action. Strengthened through following through on the decisions you make. And strengthened through recognizing that you are capable of guiding your own direction. This process begins with small steps, small commitments that are realistic and achievable, each one honored deliberately, each one reinforcing the pattern of reliability. And with every completed commitment, the mind records another piece of evidence. Evidence that you can rely on yourself. Evidence that your decisions have weight. Evidence that your direction is worth following. And now that the nature of self-trust is becoming clearer, we can look at how it is rebuilt and strengthened over time. Because trust, whether in others or in yourself, always grows through experience. Promises made and promises kept. Intentions followed by action. Consistency that gradually becomes dependable. When the mind observes this pattern repeatedly, confidence stabilizes naturally. Yet the opposite pattern can also develop. Moments where you decide to begin something and then postpone it. Moments where a goal is set, but attention moves elsewhere. Moments where doubt appears and the decision is reconsidered again and again. These experiences are common, but they send a subtle message to the mind, a message that decisions may not always lead to action. And when this message repeats often enough, hesitation becomes more frequent. Not because you lack ability, but because the pattern of follow-through has weakened slightly. Fortunately, rebuilding that pattern is straightforward. It begins with smaller commitments, decisions that are clear and realistic, actions that can be completed without unnecessary pressure. Because every completed action becomes evidence. Evidence that strengthens the relationship you have with your own decisions. Imagine deciding to do something simple during the day. Perhaps taking a walk, completing a short task, organizing something that has been waiting for attention. When the moment arrives, you follow through. The action is completed. The mind registers that completion quietly. Another signal of reliability is created. Now imagine repeating this pattern regularly. Small decisions, clear actions, consistent completion. Over time, the mind begins to expect follow-through. The internal conversation changes slightly. Instead of wondering whether something will happen, the mind assumes it will. This expectation is where self-trust begins to stabilize, because the mind recognizes a dependable pattern. You decide, you act, you complete, and repetition strengthens this sequence. The more often it happens, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, decisions feel lighter, not because they are unimportant, but because they are supported by experience. Experience that shows you are capable of moving forward when you choose to. Now consider how this pattern influences other areas of life. When you trust your own follow-through, goals feel more achievable. Plans feel more realistic. Opportunities feel easier to pursue. Because you know that once you decide, you will move toward the outcome. Self-trust creates momentum. Momentum reduces hesitation, and reduced hesitation allows progress to unfold more naturally. This does not mean every decision will be perfect. Mistakes are part of learning. Adjustments are part of growth. But self-trust ensures that you continue moving forward, even when the path changes, even when new information appears. You rely on your ability to adapt and continue. And that reliance becomes a powerful foundation for confidence. Because when you trust yourself to respond to challenges, uncertainty becomes less intimidating. The future feels more manageable. Decisions feel clearer, and progress becomes something you participate in actively, rather than something you wait for. So as you continue listening now, notice the idea of this pattern strengthening within you. Small decisions honored, actions completed, reliability increasing. Each repetition reinforcing the understanding that you are capable of guiding your own direction, capable of choosing and then moving forward with confidence. And now we begin installing a pattern that steadily strengthens self-trust. A pattern that becomes reliable over time. Not through pressure, not through force, but through repetition and follow-through. Because trust grows when intention and action begin to align. The mind notices when a decision leads to movement. It registers that reliability. And gradually, the expectation of follow-through becomes stronger. So imagine the simplest version of this pattern. You make a decision, you begin the action, you complete what you started, and you acknowledge the completion. This simple sequence forms a loop. Decision, action, completion, recognition. Each time this loop occurs, the mind records another example of reliability. The more often it happens, the stronger the pattern becomes. Because the brain learns through repetition. What repeats becomes familiar. What becomes familiar begins to feel natural. And what feels natural eventually becomes automatic. Now imagine applying this loop to small commitments throughout your day. You decide to complete a task. You begin it without unnecessary delay. You follow it through until it is finished. And then you notice the completion. The mind registers the experience quietly. Another confirmation that you can rely on your own direction. Another piece of evidence strengthening the pattern. Now imagine repeating this process again and again, not with large, overwhelming goals, but with manageable commitments, each one reinforcing the next. Over time, hesitation begins to reduce, because the mind expects follow-through. Decisions become clearer. Movement becomes easier, and trust in your own capability increases naturally. This is not about perfection. Some actions will take longer than expected. Some plans will require adjustment. Yet the pattern remains the same. You decide, you act, you complete, and you recognize the completion. Each repetition strengthens reliability, and reliability forms the foundation of self-trust. Imagine how different decisions feel when you know you will follow through. There is less internal debate, less second-guessing, more clarity about the next step, because experience has shown that action will occur. Now imagine this pattern spreading across different areas of your life. Work commitments completed consistently, personal goals approached steadily, small improvements repeated regularly. Notice how momentum begins to build. Momentum reduces hesitation. Reduced hesitation increases action. Increased action produces results. And results reinforce belief in your own capability. This is the cycle of self-trust strengthening over time. Evidence replacing doubt. Consistency replacing hesitation. Reliability replacing uncertainty. And the more often you complete this loop, the more stable your confidence becomes. Not dramatic, not exaggerated, simply grounded in experience. Because each action proves something important. You can rely on yourself. You can move forward when you decide to. And this growing reliability forms the quiet strength that supports progress in every part of life. And now something deeper begins to form from this pattern. Not just behavior, identity. Because the mind slowly begins to recognize a new description of you. Someone who follows through. Someone who honors their own decisions. Someone who can rely on themselves. This identity does not appear suddenly. It develops gradually through repeated experience. Each completed action quietly reinforcing the same message. I can rely on myself. And as that message repeats often enough, it begins to feel natural. Decisions become clearer. Movement becomes easier. Confidence becomes steadier. Not because everything is perfect, but because you know you will continue moving forward. Now imagine how this identity influences daily life. When a task appears, you approach it with calm intention, not waiting for the perfect moment, not delaying until conditions feel ideal. You begin, because beginning has become familiar. Completion has become expected. and each follow-through strengthens the pattern further. Notice how this reduces internal conflict. The mind no longer debates endlessly about whether to act. It recognizes the pattern. Decision leads to movement. Movement leads to completion. Completion strengthens trust. This clarity simplifies daily life. Energy is no longer wasted on hesitation. Attention moves directly toward progress, and progress reinforces confidence. Now imagine looking ahead several months from now. This pattern has been repeated many times. Small commitments honored consistently. Tasks completed without unnecessary delay. Plans followed with steady attention. Notice how stable that life feels. Your relationship with decisions has changed. When you choose a direction, you trust yourself to move toward it. Not perfectly, but reliably. This reliability becomes a quiet strength, a strength that supports growth in many areas of life. Work becomes more organized. Goals become more achievable. Relationships benefit from consistent presence and follow-through. Because self-trust influences more than productivity. It shapes how you move through the world. When you trust your own decisions, uncertainty becomes easier to handle. Challenges become easier to face. You know that even if something unexpected occurs, you can respond and continue. That confidence does not depend on perfect outcomes. It depends on the understanding that you will keep moving forward. Now imagine carrying that understanding into future decisions. You set a direction. You begin the action. You continue steadily. And over time, the result appears. Not because it was forced, but because the pattern of reliability remained intact. This is how self-trust strengthens. Through repetition, through consistency, through honoring the commitments you make to yourself. And as this identity becomes clearer, a sense of calm confidence grows alongside it. You recognize your ability to guide your own direction, to choose, to act, and to continue. And with each repeated experience, that confidence becomes more stable, more natural, more deeply integrated into the way you live. And now this understanding begins to settle into something steady and practical. Self-trust grows through the patterns you repeat. Small commitments honored consistently. Decisions followed by action. Actions followed by completion. Each repetition quietly strengthening reliability. When this pattern becomes familiar, hesitation begins to fade. The mind recognizes a dependable process. You decide, you act, you complete. This sequence builds confidence gradually. Not dramatic confidence, not exaggerated certainty, simply the calm understanding that you can rely on your own direction. And when that understanding becomes stable, decisions feel lighter. You spend less time questioning yourself, more time moving forward. Progress becomes easier because action follows intention more naturally. Each completed commitment reinforces the pattern again. The mind registers reliability. Confidence strengthens. Momentum grows. Soon this pattern operates almost automatically. You trust your ability to begin. You trust your ability to continue. You trust your ability to complete what matters. This steady reliability becomes the foundation of self-trust, a quiet strength that supports every area of life, guiding decisions, encouraging progress, allowing you to move forward with clarity and confidence. And the more often you honor your commitments, the stronger this foundation becomes. Reliable, steady, and increasingly natural. And in a few moments, you will return fully to your surroundings, bringing with you a clearer understanding of how self-trust is strengthened, not through pressure, not through perfection, but through consistent follow-through on the decisions you make. Each commitment honored, becoming quiet evidence of reliability. Each completed action strengthening confidence in your own direction. As you move forward from this session, that pattern continues. You decide, you act, you complete, and the mind recognizes that reliability more clearly. Self-trust grows naturally from that experience. Calm, steady, grounded in action. Take a slow breath now. Gently open your eyes. Allow the body to become a little more alert. Notice the room around you again. And as you continue with the rest of your day, carry forward the understanding that you can rely on yourself to move in the direction you choose. Each step strengthening the trust you place in your own decisions.